Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Linux Tech and Gaming Show. If you've just found us for the first time, please visit our website, linuxtechandgaming.com, and you can find us. That's missing. You can follow our player.me's. Mine is player.me/the atomic ass.
/Osiris and click on the links.
Yeah.
And I don't really use it, but it's there, and it's /Systrom. But whatever. You can usually find me on Twitter faster than you can find me on.
Yeah. It's just a place to put all your links.
Yeah, it's true. It's whatever.
But so, what have you been playing?
Well, let's see. This week or lately or since the last show, which we'll talk about the last show after this. Portal 2. A lot of Portal 2. We've been doing the co-op thing, which is kind of hilarious, and I'm kind of face-palming that I didn't record all that. But anyways, Insurgency. With System and Bo, a lot of Shadows of Mordor, which is a good mindless orc killing fun. Saints Row 4. Oh, what the fuck? I just screwed the document. Storm United. Whenever you can get some actual people on the servers on Storm United, that's actually a really good game. But there's just nobody there. It's hard to play multiplayer games without multiple players. I found that out.
Yeah. So what have you been playing, System?
Mostly Insurgency. And then whenever I'm not playing Insurgency, it's Beyond Earth or working. That's pretty much my life. So and family.
Yeah. I'm getting the impression here that you like Insurgency.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's like a mix. Okay, see, the thing is that everybody's telling me, oh, you got to play Insurgency, and I'm like, no, because I'm thinking it's going to be like CS:GO, or it's going to be something like, just another Call of Duty game or anything like that. And to be honest with you, it's not. Like it's kind of a mix between kind of the throwback to some of the Raven games like Soldier of Fortune. And then it's also at the same time, it's got that tactical element that kind of goes in the Rainbow Six style. And then it's just got all of the kind of intermixing pieces that just kind of work together. But at the same time, it's not so retarded as Battlefield sometimes. And so, yeah, I like it. And it works pretty well. And then, of course, Beyond Earth, whatever.
Okay. So I've been playing a ton of visual novels, just all of the visual novels. Anytime
we can testify to that because every time he plays them, he links it to us. And we do every time.
Yeah, just too many links.
But I've just been watching Steam for any new visual novels to come out, and I just get them and I play them. And yeah, Portal 2.
All right. So back to since the last show, we have made some what you're going to see in this show, probably some changes to the format and the way that we deliver the show. So obviously this isn't live, and instead of doing the format that we've been doing, why are you pointing at me? It's just weird.
I'm just trying to tap the window and make it work right.
Anyways,
bump it with your hand.
Yeah, we're gonna change the format, and it's gonna be more focused on discussion instead of news, as you will see. So just a heads up for the people who know. For the people who don't know, this is your first time. Well, good for you.
Okay. So our first news topic is Vulkan activity being supported by NVIDIA.
Yeah, so there was a conference, I guess you can call this, the Vulkan's Developers Days. according to the NVIDIA blogs, it's called Vulcan's Developers Day draws top talent to NVIDIA Silicon Valley campus. And the reason I put it on here is because we're seeing major companies, obviously major 3D graphics companies, supporting and developing for Vulcan, which is an awesome thing. Now, I don't know their true intention. Maybe it's for what's that thing that they have, the Shield? So an extension Android. Maybe it's for
Yeah,
the
that could be.
desktop. I'm guessing it's more for the Shield Android type of environment, but none doesn't matter. It'll translate, right? So I'm glad to see that there is active support going on here from the AMD side and NVIDIA side. And besides that, there's really not much to the story except for,
Yeah.
hey, we're working on it. It should be here soon enough. I'm guessing somewhere sometime this year.
So John Carmack had to weigh in on this.
Right.
Yeah. And we're thinking, oh, it's going to be Linux support. Then no. At
Well,
Morgan
listen,
Cox.
we got
tweeted
to
him-
tell them what Carmack said though for the listeners, not the
Yes,
watchers.
right. So at Morgan Cox UK says, does this mean future potential Linux support in your games? Carmack replies, only in the sense that Android is Linux. Oh.
Oh, burn.
And Jose McGillen asks, would be asking too much if you write an article covering Vulkan advantages over Direct3D 12? And he says the only advantage I care about is that it runs on Android.
Oh,
Well,
burn.
let's introduce the new hashtag Fuck Carmack.
Sounds like a thing.
Yeah.
He definitely, obviously, and blatantly noped Linux without no hesitation. All the fucks were not given on this day.
Yeah.
But well, who cares what he says? I mean, what has he made in the last? What does he even make recently? Is it the Oculus? Is he part of the Oculus?
I don't know.
Well,
All I heard
thinking,
was that he left id Software a couple of
okay,
years ago.
so here's the thing. It's, in my opinion, he may be a forefather of modern PC gaming when it comes to engines, and he may have changed the perspective of the way first person shooters could actually be. He may have done all those great things, but he's trying to have this aspect of he can be a Linus Torvald, or he can be a Bill Gates, or he can be, Steve Jobs. He can be one of those guys. He thinks that's where he's at. Just because he's been around, just because he's been an architect, just because he's designed something, doesn't mean that his relevance is still there. See, the thing is that it's not. He doesn't have the relevance that he used to have, and therefore his opinion when it comes to matters of that nature really are useless. Because he's like, oh, it's Android support. Well, here's the thing: Android is a quote unquote product that Google rolls out. Okay, so therefore he's basically saying as long as it's compatible with a Google product, I'm okay with it. But the deal is that in the open source community, if the technology is there and it's supported in Android, we have a probability that we might get some of the support to come back to us, especially if Android starts supporting the x86 platform and actually allowing for the usage with x86, especially due to the fact that they're doing the Android desktop stuff that they're doing and the compatibility there. As long as the compatibility is there, it'll come back to us at some point. Anyway.
I could sum it up like this: John Carmack might be listed with those guys that you listed, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. Yes, he's of in yesteryear of that status, but with none of the swag. So we don't really care what Carmack says.
Yeah, because he's not Lord Gaben. I mean,
Right.
He will never be Lord Gaben, and therefore, what he says means nothing to me.
So,
anyway.
in essence, Hashtag fuck Carmack.
Exactly. I mean, I'm not gonna disagree with that. I'm not gonna get on board and actually start posting it on Twitter because that's just not me. Um, but at the same time, it's okay. You know, if you want to say that, that's fine. After Doom 3, that's what I felt like. So anyway,
Okay. So the next topic is I actually had a game come to Linux and then disappear from Linux. And it's an interesting story. I posted about it on the Steam forums, and there's a link to it in the doc if you'd like to read this entire document. But they were trying to solve an issue with the Linux dedicated server for Blade Symphony, and that meant marking the entire game server and client as supporting Linux temporarily. And I saw that it was in my Linux library on my Steam client. I downloaded it, I played it, and I got through most of the tutorial. I'm like, oh, this is nice. I have to get the other guys into this. And then I kind of forgot about it. A couple of weeks later, I had some issues. I had to reinstall Steam. And I didn't reinstall my Steam apps folder, so I just had to tell Steam, these games are already here. They're in this folder. And it didn't want to reinstall Blade Symphony. So I'm like, what's going on here? And I go to the store, and it's not marked as a Linux game. Come to find out, the thing was just running in Wine. Like, you can take the Windows version, download it in the Steam Linux client, and if you have Wine installed, it'll just try to start it.
I see what you did there.
But the thing is, the game just worked. It worked beautifully. So, yeah. I asked the devs if they didn't want to just straight up put a Wine wrapper on it, because it's actually a game where a Wine wrapper works fine.
Yeah, that's and what I'm looking through this thread. And I see developer did actually appear in the thread. But did they say that they were gonna try to support it? I guess not, since you're talking about it now.
Well, this was
Oh, hold
over
on, hold
a
on.
year
Here,
ago.
this is gold. This is from the developer. This is what the developer said in your thread. Yeah, it would. Yeah, it wouldn't work because we don't provide the executable. I have Ubuntu on my machine, but we can't develop for Linux. Oh, really? You have Ubuntu on your machine, but you can't develop for Linux. What does that even mean? Yeah, as you said, you got it to work on accident, so they can't purposely make it work. Come on,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
They can place the I don't know, facepalm.
Yes. That's pretty much it.
Oh well, that is interesting. Now I wonder how many other games would mostly just work. I mean, these days Wine has gotten really stable, and mostly if it's a DirectX 9 game, or something similar in nature, it kind of just mostly just works with little fuss. You might
For the
need to
most
tweak it
part,
here and
that's
there. I mean, like some things like controller support may be a little fussy, but that's where the developer comes in and spends a little bit of time in getting that aspect working. And guess what? Even at 1% of the market, you're talking about a lot of people who potentially would want your game if it's any good. If your game just sucks, well, that's all right. Keep it. We don't want it.
So,
But anyhow,
I think this next topic is yours. You want to tell us about it?
Aspiring Media, the folks who brought the Penguin Squad, Civilization 5, Beyond Earth, Borderlands the pre-sequel, Knights of the Old Republic, are now dropping a few layers of fear on us. So there's a game called Layers of Fear, it's a horror style game that you can take control over an insane painter in his quest to finish his magnum opus. Heavily inspired by the masterpiece paintings from the past centuries and the architecture and decor from the I don't know what the fuck I put there. from another century. I don't know what I put in the notes, but this game should be released on February 16th, and it's just one of those weird sci-fi horror-ish, probably jump scare type of games. Like, let's probably it doesn't look jump scares as much as just like weird visuals that kind of creep you out. Looks really interesting. I like the art direction that they took with it. It's getting lots of good reviews, and it's coming to Linux. Another game coming to Linux. Looks like it's got the same day launch also as the other platforms. Mac, Windows, PC, PS4, and Xbox One, and Linux. Look at that.
Well, it's already been on PC for a while, so I've seen people play it. It's an interesting game. It changes as you play it through it. Different as you progress through the game becomes a little bit more creepy as you go to complete it.
Yeah, you're right. It's been on PC as early access. It gets an official release February
Oh.
16th.
Did not know that it was still on early access. I thought it was actually already released on Steam for PC. Interesting.
Yeah, I checked out some of the videos. It looks, I mean, I don't. The game doesn't look complicated, so it looks to mostly just work, right? So, yeah, what you've seen was probably pretty much a finished product, more or less. Looks interesting though. I don't know if I can say I'm a fan of horror games that much because I usually never end up finishing them. I remember when BioShock 1 first came out. It took me years before I even finished that, and that's not even a horror game. It was just creepy as fuck at first until you got over the creepy part, and then it was actually a good game. But anyways, Layers of Fear, February 16th. Go check that out. It's on Linux and all the platforms.
So our next topic is that Valve increases its bandwidth to 100 gigabits.
Yes, yes. So Valve had a record. I can't think of the number right now, but Valve had a record amount of people online on Christmas 2015. Christmas 2015. So I'm sure that
that's what little Timmy says because he's got a list. Christmas.
I'm channeling my inner Timmy.
Timmy wants a new car. It goes go go go.
But yeah, so level 3 communications is partnering or not with Google, and they're gonna roll out 100 gigabit per second internet ports available in 26 markets across North America and Europe. Level 3's global IP backbone capacity is 42 terabits per second. Valve,
I hope it's more than 42 terabits a second because you gotta figure that's only 42,000 Google gigabit connections. That's not much.
As a disclaimer, I'm just reading their bullet points. So
yeah,
whatever.
I would have expected them to have petabytes at least.
No. It doesn't work that way. But it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way because that's parallel computing. Think about it like them having instead of 42 one direction, it's actually 42 two directions, and so that's just the metrics. Yeah, petabyte. No. Nobody has that much bandwidth. I will tell you that. Like, the entire internet might have that much bandwidth all together, but no, that's actually not a bad background. Yeah.
Valve's platform has 100 million users and 10 million concurrent users. I would say at peak times. According to them, traffic levels to Steam servers are growing approximately 75% year over year. Steam averages approximately 400 to 500 petabytes of data worldwide per month and 4 to 5 exabytes of data per year. Just go Wikipedia those numbers, and you'll get the idea of the sheer amount of data that Steam actually transfers. But anyways,
Gabe in his love, Gabe in his life.
Exactly. What this should mean to the end user though is that you should be able to download your games relatively faster, a little bit. But just an interesting note. As Atomic said, these links will be in the something or another, the description,
The doc.
the doc, and you can go check out all of this bullet point and information from this is from investors.level3.com, which I'm Steam is or Valve is partnering with, and that would be that.
Yeah, okay. PC World says why Linux gamers shouldn't pre-order the Oculus Rift.
Yeah.
I'm not really disagreeing with them, if I'm understanding this correctly.
Well, that goes back to, doesn't that go back to the hashtag fuck Carmack?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, doesn't that go back to that same hashtag?
But here's the thing.
I think it does.
Oculus was showing support for Linux out of the gate. Then Facebook came and acquired them, and things kind of changed, right? Then no more Linux support. Because if you go into a lot of the Linux games, the reason that there was that you can find all the VR settings like in Team Fortress 2 and all that, it was made for the Oculus Rift, right? Specifically for the Oculus. And now they're not saying that it won't work. They're just saying they're not going to support it. We've heard that shit before. So I'm with you guys on this one. Don't support some shit that's not supported. So don't put your money into it.
So someone can correct me if I'm wrong here, but the new Oculus, the one that's going to come out in production, it doesn't get its video signal through traditional DisplayPort, HDMI, or DVI. It's getting its video through the USB ports, of which it requires 4 USB 3.0 ports.
Yes, that's what I've heard.
Okay. So I've had some issues personally with a little USB monitor over here. It kind of sort of works, but you got to fiddle with it. And heaven help you if you unplug it. Kernel panic.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
I mean that could very well be some of the hurdles and problems that they may have to deal with in the future. I don't think that it was always USB 3. I think that the alpha or beta or whatever production the testing models they got rolled out, I don't know that they were USB. I think they were just regular video ports connectors.
No, the original actual Oculus Rifts were using USB basically to set up the calibration whenever you moved your head and whenever you went up and down, left and right. Basically, they used the USB to actually send the links back to the laptop or the computer that you were using so that you could traverse the world. So yeah, they've just upgraded it to USB 3 because there is certain non-support within the kernel related to what they're trying to do. It isn't there. So that's why they're saying there isn't really the support that's needed to resolve the situation. But when it comes to basically, I don't know why they can't. I mean, because it was there before with USB 2.0.
Right.
We had the support. We had the ability to use it. The architecture. Now, I could understand if it was USB 3.1. That I could understand, but it's not. It's just 3.0, which, I mean, I have support for 3.0 in my computer. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense. And it could just be the way that they're using their SDKs, if you want to call them that. I call them SDKs, but they're probably referring to them as something else. But anyway.
Well, my understanding is the development kits were actually getting their video over the traditional cables. they're sending their control signals, so you could get location data back to the computer for looking around through USB. Now they're trying to get the video over USB 3.
Okay. So they are going to USB 3.1. So that makes sense why there wouldn't be support.
They're not demanding 3.1 support, just 3.0.
But USB 3.0 doesn't support video like the same way, in the same fashion. It doesn't support it the same way. It does and it doesn't. I mean, yeah, you can use a video camera, but you're just sending a data signal.
Well,
unless they're turning the Oculus Rift. See, that's what I don't get, because with your Oculus Rift, you're technically rendering your video on the machine that you're sending the video from to the Oculus Rift. Now, if they're doing bi-channel, which basically means that the Oculus Rift is also rendering video and the system is rendering video, are they trying to completely remove the computer away from it completely? I mean, I don't understand why you would go to USB 3.1 away from using an HDMI or a display port to the Oculus Rift, just continuing to use the USB signals to actually do the tracking and just leave it alone. I don't understand. Now, if you're going 3.1, I can understand, because that's something that's actually in 3.1. That's one of their things.
Well, this horribly dusty thing right here, this is my USB monitor, and legitimately only has a USB port in the back, and it's USB 2. So you can carry the data signal over the USB connection, and you could probably shoehorn it into 3.0, no problem. In fact, there is a newer version of this that's full 1080p, runs off of a single USB 3.0 port. So, yeah. I think they're trying to do the same thing, and I don't see that working too well, personally. Even on Windows.
Right.
So,
as I said, it's a bad idea. Whatever.
So basically what it seems like, to put it much more shorter, is that because there's obviously no USB connectors on the back of your video card, it's going to render the video, compress it, or maybe not compress it, and send it through USB, and then show it on your handy dandy Oculus Rift or whatever the hell. Why?
Yeah, that's gonna soak up PCIe bandwidth. That's going to introduce latency, because now you have to go through the entire PCI bus, the processor, and out to USB ports. This doesn't sound like a good idea at all.
No, that's what I just said. It's a horrible idea. It's an absolutely horrible idea. But,
well, to Oculus's and the Vive's defense, they've been getting rave reviews from what was the last show? CES 2016? All right. So everybody's saying it's outstanding as an experience. So whatever they're doing, whatever voodoo that they're doing at the moment seems to be working. We don't know. I don't know.
I think somebody's definitely getting some fun time behind the curtains to get those reviews. If you know what I mean. Anyway, whatever. That's just my opinion. No Linux support. I'm gonna automatically assume you're behind the curtain over there doing something. You had Linux support. You dropped the Linux support. Somebody's paying a little bit of money somewhere. Making sure that see that.
But our next and last story is my get hype game of the week. If you've played if you've even played Euro Truck Simulator at all, you understand the addiction that it can cause. At least
no.
Nobody cares. A topic. Nobody cares what you say. You just don't understand. You don't get it. The game it's simple, but it just satisfies that trucker in you. Everybody has a little trucker in them. You know that, right?
No, no, man. I ain't got no trucker in me, dude. I don't mind riding motorcycles, man, but I ain't got no trucker in me. I ain't gonna get up no rig. Oh, nothing. No.
Point proven. But okay, Euro Truck Simulator was a smash, and I played the game, and it was excellent. But I don't know anything about Europe. I don't drive through Europe. I don't know the locales or the scenery or none of that. I don't like the European trucks because I'm American, so I like my big Peterbilts. So they finally made American
He
Truck
said
Simulator.
Peter.
So they made American Truck Simulator. I don't know what this World of Trucks thing is. I go into the website and I don't understand. It's some kind of website. But American Truck Simulator is supposed to be coming out February 3rd. Has day one Linux support. If you scroll down there, you can see we can look at the system requirements. Minimum Ubuntu 14.04. Okay. Dual core CPU. Okay, that's manageable. 4 gigs of RAM and GeForce GTS 450 class. I don't even like what.
Intel HD 4000 is also good.
Yeah. So what is that? Sandy Ivy Bridge.
Yeah, that would be Ivy Bridge.
There you go. So anybody can play this. Obviously, apparently, that's the minimum specs. The recommended specs bump everything the same except you bump up to a quad core CPU, 6 gigs of RAM, and a 760. Why do they say class? But anyways, a GTX 760, at least 2 gigs of VRAM, which is that's manageable for most people. So I can't wait for this. And to start out with, it's going to come out with California and Las Vegas. And then there will
Sandy,
be a free.
Nevada.
What's that?
Sandy, Nevada is what it says.
I don't think you get all. From what I've read, I don't think you get all of Nevada to start with. They're still working on it. There's still some map patching to do. So I think it's mostly just Las Vegas. I could be wrong there. But you start out with those two locations, and you will get free DLC for Arizona, I believe. Also, but I don't think a truck simulator is legit unless it has Texas. So, well, I'll be waiting for that.
Well, here's the question: they got them Mack trucks up in there, them bulldogs, them things.
Them things.
Yeah, them things. I had to Google it, by the way. I had to look that up. Just try to sound enough. I don't know enough about. Yeah. Anyway.
And unlike the previous version of Euro Truck Simulator, like if you played the Euro Truck Simulator, you'll notice that it has really nice, clean graphics. They really put an effort into making the United States cities look like they actually do, which is dirty. So good on them for making us look dirty.
Dirty.
And that's all I got to say about that. Dirty. All right. So that's the news. The news is out the way. So I would assume that we've been going for a while now, which is probably longer than I intended. But the bulk of the body of it is supposed to be the roundtable, a discussion on whatever Linux topic that we came up with.
And I'll sum up this week's topic. AMD rig versus Intel rig. Fight to the death.
Well, it's not exactly a Intel rig versus AMD rig fight to the death. It really, because here's the thing: both rigs have a NVIDIA graphics card. They're both identical, pretty much, except for the Intel chipset. Which, by the way, we both went into PC Part Picker. We have provided in the show notes. There will be a link to the two designs, and you'll be able to look at it. The whole idea of this was gaming on Linux, the price of performance. Is it a thing of the past, or are we still dealing with the Linux port overhead tax? And what I wanted to look at is I wanted to see, with the progression of the Intel systems and the progression of AMD, whether AMD is really progressing or not is people's opinion. But they do have some APUs that are cost effective. And of course, there's other options out there. I still feel that the X99 and the Z170 is just a PCI Express bridge too far. Like, in my opinion, like it's just the cost per performance is still exuberant. And anyone that's using Linux, if you're using it and you want to start out transitioning, um, you want to find something that, especially if you've got a 5-year-old computer and you're really at the point now that you're like, do I need to figure out where I'm going to go from there? Um, because if you're still,
If I can interject real quick, as a side note, that is kind of why we started this whole conversation bit, is because we both have computers that are starting to show their age just a little bit, right? Not just a little bit; they are showing their age. And we were discussing upgrade paths or upgrade options. So this is where this whole idea spawns from.
right, and with that, I also wanted to think of the other pieces. You know, the upgrade paths per platform. It's it's all about the pros, the cons, the goals, the different things. And then I also wanted to look at whether we want to buckle down to a 5-year upgrade plan, which is what it seems that me and Osiris have done. We basically both of our computers are over 5 years old, but they still function. Well, mine's dying off part by part, but that's a whole other can of worms. But here's the thing: at the point when I bought it 5 years ago, I spent a ton of money. Like I spent over $2,000 building this computer 5 years ago, and the fact that it's just now gradually dying off and I was still getting good performance even under Linux, playing games that they play and doing all the things with it, and the only reason I'm having issues is because it's physically the parts are dying. Um, that's the difference. Where Osiris bought a computer 5 years ago, his computer is still working. Like it's not dying off or anything. He's just not getting the gaming performance, or he's not getting the workload performance, or he's just not getting the things that he needs to be able to move forward what's going to perform for him. And so at the same time, do we also look at, are we wanting to go with bleeding edge, or are we wanting another 5-year installment? Do we want to upgrade to another system that's going to be 5 years, or are we going to look at like a 2-year jump or a 3-year jump? And that goes also, how is that going to work with, if we're running Linux, the two different ideologies in the Linux ecosystem that we deal with right now, the LTS versus the rolling release. So how are our platforms going to work with that? And so the idea is to kind of pick two systems that fit both parameters, where we can go bleeding edge if we want to, or we can stay with a standard thing, and the cost out of the gate for performance is there. Plus, we also made an agreement that it has to be an NVIDIA graphics card, because the AMD graphics card's not gonna. We just put it that way. The CPUs are the difference, not the graphics card. We wanted to be able to see what the performance would be as equal as we possibly could, and the only thing that changes is the CPU. So, anyway, take it away, Osiris, on your part, and then I'll follow up on mine. And then Atomic, can give opinion.
Just to make a quick note, so like you spend quite a bit of money on your initial build. My idea for my build was much different. I built a moderately mid-range system about 3 to 4 years ago, which was just to get all of the core parts together and then upgrade as I went along. That's why my parts are not exactly dying, because I don't have a lot of the same parts anymore. I upgraded year by year, little by little, to where I'm at now. I just wanted to just say that like our idea of upgrade was also a bit different, as the way we implemented them. But so yeah, both of these builds are, like he said, pretty much the same. They're 90% the same. Save the CPU. One of the builds, the AMD build, is $700 approximately, and the AMD build. Well, what happened here? The AMD build, according to this, is $723, and the Intel build is $700. How'd that happen?
I have no idea, but they're pretty much on par price point, right? That was the point, was to kind of get them close to the same price point.
Right, I'll actually chime in on that. It seems that factors in rebates and it could be that the AMD system had more rebates when you first built it.
That's
Because
possible. And plus,
right now it's showing $25 in rebates for the Intel system and $40 in rebates for the AMD build, and equivalent
yeah,
shipping for both.
and some of the parts are slightly different because the platform is different. For example, the Intel build has DDR4, whereas obviously the AMD system has DDR3. But we tried to match the prices when we built it, but anyways, yeah. So the Intel build consists of an Intel i5 6400 non-K parts, not overclockable. We threw in the Cooler Master Hyper 212 on both the builds because why not? It's only $30 and hell, might as well. Gigabyte H 110M, which is a micro ATX motherboard. 16 gigs of DDR4. Samsung 850 Evo with 120 gigs of capacity on the SSD drive. A GTX 960 with 2 gigs of VRAM. I don't know why I did that. Probably should have found a 4 gig one. But anyways, Fractal Design Define R4, which I personally own and can't tell you how great it is. And EVGA 500 watt 80 plus bronze certified ATX power supply. That's the Intel build. And to go down the AMD one really quick because it's mostly the same. It's the AMD A10 7700K 3.4 gig processor, which put it out there real quick that this is an overclockable CPU while the Intel one is not. The Cooler Master Hyper 212 because hey, why not? And you can overclock. The Asus 888XM Micro ATX FM2 Plus motherboard. 16 gigs of DDR3 RAM at 1866, which is important for your AMD build speed.
And I noticed something with this, that the DDR3 on the AMD build is significantly more expensive than the DDR4 on the Intel build.
I noticed that also, and it's pretty much the same RAM.
No, it's not. So the RAM that's on the G-Sil Triton X RAM actually has a lower CAS for its memory, and the memory is also designed to be overclockable, so that so the RAM can be actually brought up higher. With the RAM that you have, the G-Skill Ripjaw V series, it doesn't have, and on top of that, you only on it you have the 2400, but it has a higher CAS.
Well, that's generally true of all DDR4 to DDR3, isn't it?
So, but again, the DDR3 is designed on the platform. I picked the best RAM to be able to make sure that also the RAM is also compliant with the board. So it's another reason that it was picked. But you're also missing a component under the Intel build.
What's that?
The hard drive.
I thought we fixed that.
No. For some apparent reason, the hard drives are different. Like, you're missing a hard drive, and I have a different hard drive. I thought we agreed on the Seagate one.
We did, and maybe it just didn't get saved. I'll let it right now.
Specific to that point, are you aware that PC part picker links are static?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes,
anytime for anybody that doesn't know this, if you are building a PC out in PC part picker, that little permalink up there doesn't update when you update your build. So every time you make a hardware change to it, you gotta
which I thought we both adjusted in the dock. Anyway, we're gonna make an adjustment. We need to adjust it to the.
Yeah, I see that yours has the 5400 RPM still also. So I think we just saved the wrong tabs because I probably had about 100 tabs open, and yeah, we'll have that fixed by the time this gets aired. So
right,
either who. So the gist of this, let's get into the gist of it. It doesn't exactly matter which parts it is. This is only proof of concept that you can build a similarly priced build, whether it be AMD or Intel. But let's get into what's the pros and cons of building an AMD or an Intel? Uh, so with the Intel build, um, one of the biggest pros for the Intel build is that if you get tired of this i5 6400, or you decide that you want to be more of an enthusiast, hardware enthusiast, and do some overclocking, you can get you a i5 K series. You can get you an i7 K series, or just an i7, or you can get you a Xeon. I believe the Xeon should fit in this board just fine. Uh, and you can go about that route. Now, the Intel's probably going to switch to socket type again next year, but
It will.
man. So, I mean, at least you have some upgrade options within this generation. Uh, this is far from the top of the top tier CPU you can fit in a socket type. Uh, yeah, a system could talk about the what's the pros and cons for the. Well, the con for the Intel one is it's freaking expensive. Comparatively speaking, keeping in mind that this AMD A10 actually outperforms this Intel in quite a few aspects. It's a bit expensive. This whole platform's a bit expensive, but I'll let it system tell you about the AMD stuff.
All right, so overall, the AMD APU, out of the gate. Now we've had some discussions back and forth, and of course Atomic has given his input, especially on the progression of the Intel graphics, and there are some factors with that to take into consideration. But the reason with the APU is the fact that if you don't have the money to grab a graphics card, like a NVIDIA graphics card or something, out of the gate, with the APU, you at least have some performance for basic game usage. Certain games you can play just natively and they work. And you also have the ability to get used to how using proprietary drivers under Linux works with an APU directly out of the box. Whereas Intel, it just works natively, and that's fine and that's great. You just don't get the same kind of performance unless you go to the next generation, which causes a problem with your performance because your price performance. If you go up to the Iris graphics on the Intel side, then you're losing, like, you spend way much more money, like a ton more money. Whereas out of the base, out of the gate, the A10 is a quad core out of the gate. It's an APU. It has decent graphics out of the gate, and you can then just expand upon it by adding a third-party graphics card in and getting even more performance out of it. With the Intel side, as he said, you can go and upgrade tier to tier and get better performance out of the Intel side as you upgrade. Um, and you're also moving into the DDR4 platform. When it comes to the issue with the AMD, we're still at the DDR3 platform. We're still dealing with DDR3 RAM and different things of that nature. But there's a lot of the same features that you still would have under the uh, Intel side that you just have, like your PCI Express lanes, all of that. That all functions. You don't have to worry about if you decide not going with this chip but going with a different APU that might be clocked lower to save a little bit, even a little bit more money. You don't have to worry about that because you're going to still have the same access to the amount of PCI Express lanes that you wanted to have with the very top tier APU. Intel, you have problems with that. Not all of the chips have the same access to the same PCI Express lanes depending on the chip because of the way that the architecture is designed. So you have different features, and it goes back and forth. It really decides if you want to build a cost-effective build up front and you just want something that you can play Minecraft on, you literally could spend and have an SSD, a 2 terabyte hard drive, 16 gigs of RAM, and of course you don't have to do 16, you could do 8. But basically out of the gate, you have a box with potential that costs the same as a motherboard and chip and RAM if you go Intel. So you have a whole system. You could have everything you want in the box ready to go. And actually, technically, you could even have the NVIDIA GTX 960 out of the box, ready to go. So that's just my opinion when it comes to that. Is the price per performance is there if you're just wanting to do that, if you're just starting out, if you're just wanting something that gets you on the ground and gets you moving, and it's a quad core, so it's going to be compliant with games. There has been issues in the past that people have dealt with on Linux where some games didn't want to run, but with the APUs they never had a problem. It was actually on the FX chips that they were having issues with, just because of the architecture on the FX chips. But the APUs never had a problem. The APUs had no issues. They just ran, and because they're just a quad core chip. But it goes for that. It's that in that realm of things. That's what you're looking at. Again, back to Osiris or Atomic on your input.
Well, I'd have a little bit of a critique of this build. The case is nice. I'm not going to argue that, but probably a little too nice for the budget. I might still go $40 case for this price level.
You could definitely do that. Of course, anytime you make a predetermined build like this, it's going to be flexible and to the person who needs to use it. I prefer just getting a nice. I've built a lot of computers, like these types of computers, and I've gone through all of the phases of gaming PC builds. I've seen some pretty shitty builds. It is of my opinion now to just get a good case up front because you'll regret it later.
Right. So, and as the whole point of this is, okay, so the idea for this is that the hardware inside the box is important, but if you're building something that you want to have good use out of, you want to invest. You definitely want to invest in the system around the system itself. You want a good power supply. You want a really good power supply. You want a good case. You want a case that you don't have to worry about. You want something that's going to function. And the reason that the Define R4 is on the list as the case for this box, it's the case for both builds. It's not just this build, it's both builds, because it's one of the best cases on the market for the size, for the style, for everything. It is one of the best cases because you can water cool in it. You can do anything you want, and that was the point.
And it's one of the most solid, like, built and feeling cases I've ever seen in my life, especially at this price. You're not gonna find any other case in this price range that has the solid feel that the Define has. It's a heavy ass case, and it's actually wider than most cases also. So you won't have any problems with, like, if you decide to get the knock to a heat cooler or some like crazy thing, you can, like System said, you can fit anything into this case. So 3 years from now, you might be of a whole different mindset. You might have been a budget builder to start with, but now you want to go like I did. I ended up going with a full water cooling. That was not going to happen in the cheap ass case that I built my computer in originally. That's for sure. So,
and again, and that also goes. People would be like, "Well, why did you pick why the EVGA 500 watt 80 plus bronze power supply?" Well, number one, the power supply for the price is one of the best power supplies on the market. It's also a very efficient power supply, and it's plenty of power. It's 200 watts over even what the AMD rig would need with the graphics card, and it has the ability to support up to a higher graphics card if you need to. If you decide down the road you want an even better graphics card, you can go that route. That's the point. The point is to build the base components to allow you to expand as you want to be able to do this. Because here's the thing, not only do we advocate Linux, but we're gamers. We know what you want. We know what you want to think. We know what you want to go with, and this is why we want to give you these options, because we want to recommend what we would buy today. If I had the amount of money that I wanted to spend on a box today, and I'm even thinking about it right now because I've got a rig that's dying, I'm looking at it right now in comparison. This is what I would buy. This is exactly what I would spend my money on to get a Linux rig to do what I want it to do, to play the games I want to play, to achieve the things I want to achieve, because it works. And now, would it be in my use case, would it be my main rig? Probably not. But it would be a rig I would use specifically to do certain things for gaming. And that's what I would do on it. Because I have special case needs for certain things, it's not what I would do on my daily rig. But it's definitely good as a quote for a gaming rig to replace the rig that's dying. It's what I would use. Anyway.
So the reason I
I,
preferred the go ahead, Tom.
I would certainly say that 500 watts is probably actually going to be enough. I've got an i7 4790K, which at times likes to pull 140 watts, despite its 88 watt TDP. And I had a 780. Now I have a 980 Ti. And at the wall, the system never gets over 400 watts. That's about the highest end you can get without going X99 or SLI,
170.
Oh,
which isn't an option. And as Z170 is a consumer board, so that's what you're looking at with the i5 rig. So yeah, you can get away with a low wattage power supply, though personally I would spend a little extra money for a platinum rating, but that's just me personally.
right. But so one of the reasons that I was much more adamant for the Intel system, I preferred it, is because I think that a lot of people eventually, once they get into the gaming, they're gonna want to do other things. They're gonna want to do YouTube. They're gonna want to do video. They're gonna want to do streaming. They're gonna want to do something, because everybody wants to be a star. But I think that the Intel system definitely offers more flexibility in that realm, for immediate growth, and which is why I prefer the Intel-based system. I mean, that's really the whole reason. If it wasn't for that, then it wouldn't even matter to me. But that reason specifically is why I say uh, I prefer the Intel system, because once you outgrow this Intel, even 2 years down the line, you don't have to buy the newest platform. Get you an i7 or whatever. Get you more RAM. Get you an i7, and sit on it till your 4 to 5 year plan is up, or whatever it is that you're considering doing. That's really the only argument I have for the Intel at this point, because I just think that the whole platform as a whole is ridiculously overpriced right now.
Right. So basically, this goes back to the discussion. This is what we discussed. What I discussed at the beginning. So we've got the LTS versus the rolling concept, and the same thing goes with the hardware and the software. Whereas my plan, if I design, I build something that I'm gonna build it. If it's a budget consciousness, I'm gonna look for the best budget, and I'm gonna expect to use it for 5 years to meet that need that I want to use it for. And that's where it's to that. Whereas Osiris has a completely different need. He needs to be able to have expandability, he needs to have expanded functionality, he needs to be able to move and flow as he expands his feature sets that he needs over the next few years. So the Intel build is a better option for that. It's just going to cost you more money out of the gate. And then it's going to cost you more money over time, versus the AMD build, which is going to cost you less money out of the gate, but you're going to really only have so much upgrade path in certain features. Whereas you can upgrade the graphics card, and when games start requiring 8 cores to do something, then you might have problems. That's when you need to. But right now, games don't even require that. 2, maybe 4 cores is required for game and functionality. Now, if you're going to do streaming or you're going to do anything of that nature, the advantage of the APU is there are features with the APU that might actually offset those functionality that you can do, but that really depends on how you want to use it. If you stayed AMD, you could actually use both chips in sync, but in Linux, it doesn't function real well. So that's why the recommendation is to go to the NVIDIA card, because you're going to get the performance you want out of the NVIDIA card independent of what the GPU, independent of what the CPU can do. So you're just going to get the functionality separate from the two technologies. And I think it's really come to a silent truce between NVIDIA and Intel and AMD, that it's really kind of a silent truce where they just function together and they just work, and whatever the end user purchases, it just functions together. Because with the APU board and its chipset, it supports NVIDIA Crossfire and NVIDIA's SLI, and it also supports Crossfire on the board. So it's not like you have to pick one or the other. And it's the same with the Intel. You can, if you run two AMD cards and you run two NVIDIA cards, they have both Crossfire and SLI. So it's really come to that it's really what you want to pick. And again, you know, we've described from our two sides where we're coming from and why we recommend what we recommend. But it really is your choice. Do you want to go long term? Are you wanting to be able to go cost effective up front? Are you looking for upgradability out of the gate? I mean, what your functionality, what your choices are, it kind of goes back to what distribution of Linux you run, also goes in that same kind of thing. Whereas the AMD platform is going to work out of the gate more efficiently with something like Ubuntu, with Mint, with, you know, because the support's going to be there that's needed for it to function. With the Intel side, depending on your upgrade path, depending on what functionality you want, you may have some features that might require kernel revisions, may require different functionality that's needed. LTS may not have it out of the gate. It may not. Really depends on where you're at. So, I mean, that's the thing we'd have to discuss. You know, Atomic will have to give us our input on, you know, comparative to the hardware on Arch and how it functions in that way, compared to what he thinks.
What was that about Arch?
Arch sucks.
My brain didn't process that, so.
Okay, that's the LTS versus the rolling, which Arch is a rolling distribution, and how its functionality works with the hardware, and over time how that's going to function and be important to the end user.
At the time that I built my 4790K rig, I was still using some derivative of Ubuntu and playing around with Manjaro. Ubuntu had serious problems out of the gate, but this would have probably have been 1404. Point nothing. And I was getting seg faults in practically everything. It was seg fault city. It was not what I would consider stable, and I actually thought it was a CPU at first. But then I tried Manjaro, and Manjaro had its own collection of problems with graphics, but the programs were stable. So I decided to just build straight Arch, and I only built it the once. I haven't reloaded this machine in a year and a half now. Yeah, this was summer of 2014 that I built this thing. And it was probably just something in the old kernel that the LTS runs. So if you're wanting to run bleeding edge hardware, especially bleeding edge Intel hardware, because what I've heard recently in the news is that AMD is already pushing updates to the kernel for Zen, completely contrary to their habits with graphics drivers. They're on the ball with their CPU drivers. But yeah, you're probably not going to want to use an LTS with Skylake yet. Maybe 1604.
Which is kind of funny though, um, because if you listen to the kernel developers, some of the talks that they give, they say Intel is one of the companies who wholly and 100% not only supports Linux, but they're so hand in hand with the Linux kernel development squad that they have they have drivers or whatnot for 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 stuff that doesn't even exist yet. That's how far down the road that Intel's roadmap is not only planned but actually implemented into Linux. Why does it take so long to actually get there though?
Okay, so there's a difference between the graphics side of it, the way the Intel, the way that their graphics portion works comparative to the way that their CPU functionality works. Yeah, they have roadmapped for Xeons and i7s and i5s for the CPU side of things, completely roadmapped out. It's in the kernel. It'll work. It's your chipsets, your options, because they have so many. The
Oh
issue
yeah,
is
yeah,
not,
yeah. You're right
okay.
about that.
AMD has one right now. They really only have one chipset, and then you have two modifications of that single chipset. You have one for the APUs and you have one for the FX series. And the only difference between the two of them is that the FX series doesn't have onboard graphics. So that's it. That's the difference. There, the architectural wise, you really only have those two pieces. The FM1 chipset is pretty much the same on the CPU portion. It's the graphics that's different. But if you
You
use a third,
are you
but if
talking
you
about
use
FM2 plus?
yeah, well, it's actually the F1 platform, FM1 platform. That's the base platform that it's based off of. Because you have the AM platform. You have 1, 2, and 3, um, and technically 3 plus or whatever. But you really have the FM1 platform and the AM platform, but they're technically both the same platform. They're just one has graphics integrated and one doesn't.
Okay.
And that's the only difference between architecturally. The CPU, the actual on-die CPU, the quad-core on-die CPU that's on an FM platform is identical, as it would be on the other side to a quad-core of the same feature set. At least from what I've read in the white papers and what I've seen, it's identical. There may be different functionalities and features, but those are already mapped out because they've been integrating them for 4 years now. There's not anything new from AMD, so everything is already in the kernel. It just works. And I mean that is a disadvantage, but at the same time in Linux that's not a disadvantage. That's actually an advantage because it's there. So I
I
don't
just
know.
want to I want to make a note also. The builds will be in the show notes, but of course builds are super flexible. Like I'm sure that we could trim this build down to $450 if you really need to, and obviously anybody can swell it up to $2,000. Just throw more hardware at it. Uh, and not only that, like I mean, I would assume as a Linux user, uh, or even if somebody who's curious to Linux, that means you have a certain intellect. So you can come up with new things. If you have an HP Pavilion or some shit sitting around, that's like 1 year old. You only bought it last year, or you bought it recently. You don't even want to buy a new PC. Something like the 750 Ti is perfect for that situation. Maybe the 960. Is there any 960s without the need for auxiliary power? I'd have to look into that. But you can throw uh, PCI graphics cards into a OEM built computer and just call it a day and be completely done with that. And that should last you at least a couple of years, depending on your wants and needs. Like you're only going to get so far with that type of build, but like all I'm saying is that it's flexible. And if you need information, of course, you go to the aforementioned player.me's and you click all the links and you ask. And that's that simple.
Well,
Uh,
and the thought process here also is that if you have an old Core 2 Duo, dual core, it's only got like 3 or 4 gigs of RAM and it's had Windows 7 or Windows XP on it, and you're looking for a newer computer, these are the entry level options that we recommend to start from that would give you the options and abilities to expand and actually get into gaming and kind of overcome what we call the Linux overhead tax, because both of these will kind of overcome. Both of them are the specs that if you looked at the other games that were recommended, what the specs were for those other games, I mean, even the upgraded specs were saying use a quad core CPU, use for the trucker game. If you want better performance, do quad core, do this. So in essence, it really is one of those things where it's where your money is, what you have to spend, what you're looking to upgrade, and where you want to go with it. And it's not so much that we're telling you specifically this is what you should buy, unless it's the case, or the power supply, or things of that nature. But that's only because we care about you and we want you to have good equipment. But when it comes to either AMD or it comes to Intel, it's really your choice on what you want to go with and where your budget is.
Sweet. Well, there you have it. Just buy a calculator and call it a day. But anyways, that is the assessment of budget PC builds for Linux gaming, AMD, Intel. Those are your options with the pros and cons. And I think that'll wrap that up. Take it away, Atomic.
Okay. So go visit our website, linuxtechandgaming.com. Click the About Us link, and you'll find links down there. Go visit them. Follow all the things. We should have a link to our Steam group where you can find our official, unofficial forums. And
You say that every week. Is there actually a link to our Steam group there?
No, there's not a link to our Steam group. It's a subtle hint for you to add one.
Right. I get
And
it.
you keep missing it.
I guess I should pay attention more.
Hint. Hint. Add the
got
cheese. Add the
Hentai.
cheese.
All right, I got it.
Okay, so
We're tired of hamburgers. We want cheeseburgers. Add the cheese.
What?
right. Okay, see y'all later. Bye.
Peace.